It is pleasing that despite the gloom and doom which we have heard from the Treasury and Treasury predictions, that the Chancellor was able to start off his speech today by blowing out of the water all of the arguments being made by his own department about the impact of the vote on Brexit and pending Brexit and the negotiations up to Brexit. We have seen that pay is now growing in real terms, employment is up, the deficit is down, borrowing is going down, there's no more borrowing now to cover current spending, and that the government is cutting taxes for 3 million people. So there is good news, and I think it should be a warning to everyone who maybe and some members already picked this up today, who have maybe fallen for this idea that the Treasury forecasts would tell us that in the event of a no deal, then the economy is going to have a bad downturn and we're going to have an emergency budget. All of the arguments we heard at the time of the referendum, they haven't come to pass, and indeed the Chancellor has confirmed that today. However, I think that the budget which he has brought forward today is a balanced budget, and it takes into two considerations. First of all, real problems that need to be addressed, and also that the Chancellor cannot be reckless. When we have a debt, the interest on which is the total of the budgets for Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales, then it is quite clear that we cannot keep on simply borrowing and then having to service that debt at the loss of money being available for services and for public sector spending in the future. So the Chancellor, I think, has got the right blend in today's budget. And I welcome a number of things. I welcome the fact that he is going to take less people out of tax. I welcome the fact that he is going to go after those who are not paying their tax, by, of course, going after those who use a digital platform and who currently do have an advantage over those who pay rates, etc., in the high street, and also the fact that small businesses are now going to have greater rates relief. I'm also pleased at some of the announcements in respect of Northern Ireland. There is about £1 billion worth of money here for Northern Ireland. Some of it is simply money being released that had conditions attached to it, and other new money. The City deal, I believe, will have a great impact, the £350 million on the City deal, a great impact on modernising industry in Northern Ireland, increasing productivity and sending us in the direction of the industries which will be the growth industries for the future, as well as promoting the tourist industry. The additional £2 million for Belfast City Centre, which I know my colleagues lobbied for, is important, especially given the short-term difficulties which traders are facing in those areas. I am disappointed, however, that there has not been more progress made on reducing VAT and on their passenger duty. We do have a situation where the Irish Republic has ruthlessly pursued a tax policy to the detriment of the tourist industry and the airports in Northern Ireland. And this should be a warning to those who say it would be good to stay in the single market. Because of single market rules and because of the rules on state aid which exist in the single market, it has not been possible to look at VAT reductions or air passenger reductions for the region of Northern Ireland. And for those who say that, well, part of the deal should be that Northern Ireland stays in the single market, then we can see how it will be tied into EU rules in the future, and that would have an impact on our ability to fine-tune the economy and to deal with issues in the economy. I've also got to say I find it very strange that the Chancellor is proposing over the next 5 years to increase air passenger duty revenue in the United Kingdom by nearly 30% by putting up the duty on long-haul flights. The impact of that will simply be to allow even more leakage of people flying from the United Kingdom through the Irish Republic to escape air passenger duty. It just doesn't make sense, and it will impact on regional airports right across the United Kingdom. The other thing which we have been pleased to see in the budget is the fact that universal credit, at least measures are being taken to deal with the migration in universal credit. I don't know if the £1 billion today will be enough. It is something which we will be looking at very closely, because, like the Honourable Lady for South Cambridgeshire, I believe that universal credit actually is a good policy. I believe that it helps those who are on benefit, because they don't have to apply for a multitude of benefits, and it helps them into work. But if it becomes a botched policy, then it will fail, and it will have a stigma attached to it because sufficient resources were not put to it in the first place. And it is something which I think that we need to look at very carefully as the legislation and the SIs come through this House. So, Mr. Speaker, we give a cautious welcome to this budget. We welcome the £320 million extra for Northern Ireland and Barnett consequentials, and we look forward to being